Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice of radio, so today I'm going to be showing you another new Darkrai card, because apparently we don't have enough Darkrai cards at the moment. Although, like pretty much every Darkrai card that's released, it could actually be pretty good. So, we've got the usual intangibles that we don't need to talk too much about. He is a dark type, which is pretty much irrelevant because nothing good is weak to dark at the moment. His fighting weakness could be relevant, especially with this new Lycanroc also coming in Burning Shadows, which is the set in which this Darkrai will be released. Do check out my link in the description to see all about that Lycanroc. A resistance to Psychic is always handy, and with the new Garbodor at the moment, it is especially so. 120 HP is pretty good for a basic, kind of standard for a big basic, I suppose, but you can use Fighting Fury about to increase that. So, with the basics out the way, first attack, Hypno Wave, Dark and Colourless, 30 damage, and Sleep. Now, automatic sleep is a good thing. It means your opponent has a 50% chance of being awake at the beginning of their next turn. For sleep, for newer players, between turns, flip a coin. If heads, you wake up. If tails, you don't. And if you're asleep, you can attack, retreat, etc. 2 energy on a dark basic Pokemon, we can do an awful lot better than that. It's alright in a pinch. Try and keep them asleep means they can't do anything, but it's not a great attack. But the second attack... oh lordy, I do like the second attack. For a dark and 2 colourless, so you can use double colourless if you wish. 80 damage. If your opponent has used their GX attack, this does 160 damage. And of course, Choice Band has been released now, so free energy 190. That's pretty good. Means that all your basic GXs like Tauros and Lapras, all of your GXs, your Yveltals and Giratinas and Volcanions, all of those are being KO'd and you're taking 2 prizes. If you wish to play a Professor Kukui as well, this actually accelerates up to 210 damage, and then you're hitting stage 1 GXs like Umbreon, Espeon and Gumshoes, and you're hitting Mega Evolution Pokemon, like for instance Mega Gardevoir, or Mega Mewtwo, although with its weakness to Garbodor, Mega Mewtwo is, it's not going to see a lot of play going forward. Now, the downside of this attack is the energy cost. It costs a dark and 2 colourless energy. You can use a double colourless, but it's still quite a lot of energy to put onto a basic Pokemon, when you could be putting the energy onto something like a Darkrai EX or an Yveltal EX. Well, the good news is that this is going to see play either in a Darkrai deck or in an Yveltal deck. So if we see Darkrai, we've got the Breakpoint Darkrai, and these decks are likely to be playing cards like Max Elixir, which allows you to grab an extra energy from your deck, as long as it's in the top 6 cards, and attach it to a bench basic Pokemon. And of course, Experience Share, whereby if a Pokemon gets KO'd, you get to move an energy from that Pokemon to the Pokemon with Experience Share on. Although, like I've said, the importance of having a Choice Band on this Darkrai, there's a huge difference between 160 doesn't KO EXs and basic GXs, and 190 KOs all of them except Wailord. There is a huge difference. You don't want to have an EXP share on this Darkrai, you want to have a Choice Band. Now, you could use a new card Field Blower to replace an Experience Share with a Choice Band, but what I like a lot more is the upcoming card Wish Baton. Now, this is going to be coming in Burning Shadows as well, and it's a lovely little tool, and what happens is that if the Pokemon that Wish Baton is attached to gets KO'd, you get to move up to 3 basic energy from that Pokemon to a bench Pokemon. So you get your Darkrai gets KO'd with Wish Baton, and you get to put 2 or 3 energy, however many is attached to Darkrai, back onto this particular Darkrai, and then you're ready to go. I like this a lot. This is how you're getting the energy on him. Big problem, of course, is that Max Elixir aside, you're really relying on cards like EXP Share and Wish Baton. Now, in Guardians Rising, we just got Field Blower. Field Blower gets rid of tools. So, as much as you can put a Choice Band on Darkrai and immediately attack before your opponent can play a Field Blower, EXP Share and Wish Baton activate when your opponent takes a KO. So if they play a Field Blower before they get the KO, they can stop these cards coming into effect. That's going to be a problem. And this might make Darkrai EX less viable going forward since Field Blower has come out. So what are people going to play instead? Yveltal EX, which is more reliant on things like Baby Yveltal, hey Nick, to accelerate energy, and it uses double colourless energy a lot more. And there's no reason you couldn't use this Darkrai in an Yveltal deck. One attachment from Oblivion Wing, plus a double colourless energy, and you're ready to go. And Yveltal decks are going to be using Choice Band anyway. So this could fit into a Darkrai deck if these continue to see play, or an Yveltal deck if these come back around. But let's assume that you can get the free energy and the Choice Band on Darkrai. This does a lot of good things. It means you can force a 7-prize game. Your opponent has to KO 3 EXs and take 6 prizes to win the game. If they KO a single Darkrai and 2 EXs, they've only taken 5, they haven't won the game, so they've still got to KO a 2-prize EX to win the game. They don't get any closer to winning by KOing it. It means that in a deck where you would usually be taking KOs with EXs and GXs, you can take a KO with a single prize Pokemon, so you are taking prizes, hopefully 2 prizes at once, without having to give up 2 prizes. But if nothing else, you can put this Darkrai on your bench and your opponent goes, oh, well that's alright, if I don't use my GX attack, my opponent's only hitting for 80 damage. He's not going to want to do that, and they're right. This Darkrai hitting 80 damage for free energy, not good. But that means your opponent might sit there and not use a GX attack that they would otherwise want to use just to make sure you're not hitting for extra damage. And that is the kind of like the psychological play here with Darkrai. If your opponent does use their GX attack, then you can potentially take 2 prizes. And bearing in mind, if your opponent doesn't KO Darkrai, then you're taking 2 prizes every turn. So if they don't get an immediate KO on the Darkrai, you're probably taking 4 prizes with a non-EX, and that's usually enough to win the game here. So you're in a great position unless your opponent doesn't use their GX attack. So they don't use their GX attack, and it is a classic example, to use a very British expression, of cutting off your nose to spite your face. And let's face it, there are some decks that want to use a GX attack early. Solgaleo saw a little bit of play, it's not seeing very much at the moment, but this is a GX attack that gets 5 energy out of your deck and attaches them. It's an early game attack. Some people have been talking up Turtonator as a potentially viable deck. The GX attack attaches 5 energy from your discard to your Pokemon. You're not going to want to wait until the last turn of the game to use this. This is an early to mid-game attack. Drampa GX, allowing you to shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 10 cards. This is not going to be a GX attack you want to use often. As I always say when I talk about Drampa, your opponent's just going to go ahead and play an N. But sometimes they're going to use it. And for all of these Pokemon, there is no, I'm not using my GX attack. They've got to use their GX attack. And let's face it, we've even got cards like Hala that was released in Guardians Rising. Shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 4 cards, but if you've already used your GX attack this game, you get to draw 7 cards instead. And decks that are playing Hala are going to want to use their GX attack nice and early. And now you put them in the awkward position of, if they don't use their GX attack early, they stop Darkrai but they can't use Hala. If they do use their GX attack early, they get to take advantage of Hala, but you get to take advantage with Darkrai. And that is essentially where Darkrai sits. He's not a great card on his own. He's not going to be a Pokemon that you build a deck around. He is going to be a tech in either Darkrai decks, using things like Max Elixir in EXP Share, or in Yveltal decks, using things like Oblivion Wing and double colourless energy. And either you try and use him to get a cheeky 2 prizes at one point during the game with a non-GX attacker, or you sit him there and try and make sure that your opponent doesn't use a GX attack they would otherwise use. If you've got a Darkrai on the bench, your opponent has really got to think about whether they want to use their GX attack. And if nothing else, This means you should have a couple copies in your binder ready to take into a dark deck at short notice, and that is the very definition of a free WOSI card. Now, you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. There is a comment section. Go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. Obviously, I think you should use them both. I am a little bit biased, but go ahead, do it anyway. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @TheWossy, and the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.